Continuing, actually, we are finishing our series on the Christian journey. And so this week we're on Heirs of God. I'll give a little bit of a recap from what we've covered so far, and then kind of conclude the series then with this topic. So if you remember, the first week was on sinners. We were, before we were saved, this was our situation. We were without God, lost in the world, sinners. And then what happened next in our Christian journey is we were born of God. And that was to become a child of God. And we saw that week that is not a metaphor. We don't use being, birth as in a metaphorical way, but we literally received God's life, and in that way we were born again, right? In John 3 it talks about being born of the Spirit, and this was the beginning of our Christian journey. So that's on the outline here. That's Roman numeral 1a. It says, the Spirit himself witnesses with our spirit that we are children of God. The Spirit came in. It didn't come into our flesh or into our soul, but if you remember those three circles that were drawn on the board, our innermost part is our spirit. And that's what received God's Spirit to make us children of God. But then there's also another term that's used, and that is a son of God. So Romans 8:14 says, for as many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are sons of God. So to be a son, in the biblical sense here, implies that there's been some growth, some maturity. And right in this verse, sons they're able to be led by the Spirit. Right, a small infant or a child doesn't have the capacity to be led by the Spirit. But as we grow and come to know the Lord, right, we let Him spread from our spirit into our soul, right, into our mind, into our will, and into our emotion. Then we can have the experience of being led by Him. And to some extent, we've all probably been led by the Lord, right, to maybe do something or to not do something. But the more that we grow and mature, the more we'll be led by the Lord. And then we come to the topic of today, an heir of God. This is a further step of maturity. So in ancient times when this was written, an heir, right, someone who was set to inherit something, had to reach a legal age. They had to be matured, and there was a legal process that they had to go through to fully receive their inheritance. And this is also what we must do. Not only should we be a son, no longer a child, but we need to grow and mature as a son so that we can become an heir, so that we can fully inherit everything that God has for us. And this verse here, Romans 8:17, I'll just read it. It says, and if children, heirs also. On the one hand, heirs of God. On the other, joint heirs with Christ. If indeed we suffer with Him, that we also may be glorified with Him. So this verse, it says that we are inheriting God. We are an heir of God. And to some extent, we experience God, and it even... in the New Testament, it says we have a foretaste of the Spirit. That is a foretaste of our full inheritance. Right? We can touch the Lord and we experience Him today, but that's just in the way of a foretaste. Eventually, we'll be fully matured, and we'll inherit God as our portion in full. And this is the path that we're on. So our need today is to grow and to mature. This is the Christian journey. So we'll go on to Roman numeral 2, right? And this is the way to be matured. This is very important, right? Because it's good to know that we need to grow, but how do we do it? And what does God do to help us to grow? What's the process? And this was covered a little bit last week, right? Maurice shared the matter of transformation, right? He brought in a piece of petrified wood. For those of you who don't know, right, petrified wood it's wood, but it was placed in or fell or by some way it entered flowing water. And over many years, I'm not sure how long it takes, but after some time, the flow of that water flowing into the wood and over the wood, it brought in different minerals, and it carried away the wooden element. So it still looked like wood. It had the appearance, the shape of wood, but it was no longer wood. It was a stone, right? It had been transformed, and that transformation, right, is what God wants us to experience. So I'll just go ahead and read. I'll read some of these verses here. So Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose." And this is an interesting verse. So to really understand it, you need to look at the context of the verse. So this was a verse from Romans chapter 8. And Romans chapter 8, it is about us growing, right? That's where we see that we're children, we're sons, and we're heirs. And the good that this verse is referring to is our growth in life, our maturation. That's the good it's referring to, right? This doesn't mean that you're going to win the lottery, or it doesn't mean that, oh, I crashed my car, so God's going to give me an even better car, right? That might happen, but that's not the kind of good that we're talking about. The good we're talking about is that in everything, all things work together for our growth in the divine life, so that God can help bring us along, right, in this Christian journey, so that we can mature. And I'll go ahead and read 2 Corinthians 4:17. It says, "For our momentary lightness of affliction works out for us more and more surpassingly an eternal weight of glory." So this momentary lightness of affliction, this is related to the all things. So all things, this is not just the good things, it's usually the bad things. I'll go ahead and read 2 Corinthians 3:16 and 18 as well. "But whenever their heart turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding and reflecting like a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, even as from the Lord's Spirit." So to make sense of these verses, we have to put them together, right? So in the first verse, Romans 8:28, we have all things working together for our good. And in 2 Corinthians 3:16, we have us, our heart, turning to the Lord, beholding and reflecting Him. So the all things, right, this is on God's side. This is related to our environment, to things we experience. But then what we do is, in the midst of these things, we turn our heart to the Lord. And when we do that, we behold Him and we reflect Him. And 2 Corinthians 4:17, momentary lightness of affliction, I put this here because a lot of the things that are mentioned in Romans 8:28 are not what we would think of as good things, right? It's the hard things. It's the troubling things. It's the difficult circumstances that we're in. Spencer's not here, but don't know if many of you know Spencer. He has a class on Wednesday night, so he can't make it. But he's another student who meets with the club, and he found out, this was a few weeks ago, that he had an exam on a Monday. And then he found out not just that exam, but another exam. And then actually he checked his schedule, and it turned out, he had 3 exams on a Monday. And this is an example of a momentary lightness of affliction. Because what does this mean? When you have 3 exams on a Monday, this means you can't just sit around on the weekend and watch YouTube and hang out and enjoy the football game. Because, oh man, I need to study for these exams. But it's these things that cause us to turn to the Lord. Right? Our response to this is, oh Lord, I need you. Right? Oh Lord, this thing I don't want to do. Lord, I need to study all weekend. I'd rather be doing this, but Lord, I need you for this. And a key verse there, or a key part of Romans 8:28, is to those who love God. That's one of the keys for all these things that happen to us to work together for good. It's in the midst. Lord, I don't like this, I don't want to do this, but I love you. I turn my heart to you. And then as we behold him and reflect him, or as we behold him, right, we reflect him and we are being transformed into his image from glory to glory. And, right, that's the process. Right, the things happen outwardly, but inwardly we turn to the Lord, right? We remain in the flow of the divine life, right? Just like the piece of wood, right, remaining in the river until it's transformed into something else. That's what we need to do, right? We remain in the flow of the divine life. And I think, okay, we can go on to Roman numeral 3. So why do we need to do this? Right? What's really the point of us going through this process of growing, allowing the Lord to work in us, and allowing him to mature us? So the first point here, Roman numeral A, Matthew 16:18 says that I will build my church. So the Lord's goal isn't just to have us all as matured and individual Christians, but he's building, and he wants to build us together. Right? He wants to build us up and have his built up church. And that's what he's doing in this age, is he is building up his church. And eventually, when the church is built up enough, there's enough building, he will come back. He will return. And I'll go ahead and read Revelation 22:12. So this is more now related to our incentive. It's the Lord's reward. It says, "Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to render to each one as his work is." So this is a very good point, because in a sense, what should help to motivate us or to encourage us to stay on this Christian journey, right? Because on one hand, it's very easy, or it could be very easy to just say, "Oh, this is too hard. This opening to the Lord, this letting the Lord come in and touch me, right? Make his home in all different parts of my heart." You might just want to throw in the towel or forget about it. Just go do something else and not worry about this. But, right, the Lord has a reward, right, for those who faithfully follow him and who allow him to work in them. and who grow in life, who go through this process of maturing in his life in this age on the earth, the word says that he will reward them. And so not all believers go through this process, right? There's many Christians on the earth. God has many children of God on the earth, but not all of his children, right? Just like, right, sometimes, you know, you have a naughty kid in the family and you have a good kid, and, right, the better behaved one, you might receive a reward. The other one might receive some discipline. And so God is righteous and fair in this same way, right? For those who follow him, right, allow his life to increase, he has a reward for those who do this. And another verse is 2 Corinthians 5:10. For we all must be manifest before the judgment seat of Christ. And this was spoken to believers, right? The context of this wasn't spoken to unbelievers or believers and unbelievers, but this was just speaking to the believers. That each one may receive the things done through the body according to what he has practiced, whether good or bad. And then I'll continue Matthew 25:21. His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. Enter into the joy of your master." And in this parable in Matthew 25, there's not only the good and faithful slaves, but there are the slothful slaves, right? Those who don't cooperate with the Lord, those who don't, right, have a heart to serve him or work with him in their life on earth. And then I also put on here 2 Timothy 4:7-8. I have fought the good fight. This is Paul saying this. I have finished the course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which with the Lord, the righteous judge, will recompense me in that day. Right. So Paul realized at the end of his life that he had kept the course. Right. He had finished his Christian journey.
Yeah.
And he realized there was a reward for him at the Lord's coming. And then Revelation 20 verse 4 refers a little more specifically to this reward. And they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. Right? So the Lord, right now, he's building his church, and eventually he wants to return. Right? So our growth in life is actually so we can be built up, right? To be into his body, into his bride, to bring him back. Right? And then those who helped him, right? His children who helped participate in making this happen, they receive a reward to reign with him for 1,000 years. And there's a lot actually to get into related to this topic.
Yeah.
If any of you would like to get into it more, I think we got into a little bit, right, Tyler, earlier this week. We had an appointment with Jefferson, and we got into it a little bit more. So if any of you would like to, do that, Ruth is available for appointments, and myself, Jefferson as well. Just reach out to one of us, and we can get into this a little bit more, because this is just a very sort of brief and general overview of this matter. But anyway, this is our Christian journey. This is what the Lord, right? This is what he desires for us to do in our Christian life. It's a matter of us growing, of us maturing, and of us, right, cooperating with the Lord. Right, recognizing that all the situations, the environments, the heat, the pressing matters or situations, it's all to help us to turn to the Lord. Right? Because if life is too easy, at least in my experience, I find that I don't turn to the Lord very much or very easily. But when the difficulties come, that's what causes me to really turn, right, and to open to him. So, amen. I think we can go ahead and end here. Let's break up into groups, and let's just have some more discussion on this matter, especially maybe on the way to be matured. We can talk about more of that, more of the things we can do in our in our Christian life, right, to stay in this process, right? What can, maybe some experiences some of you have had about, right, different situations or environments, right, that have caused you or helped you, right, to turn to the Lord, to grow in Him, right, and to stay on this pathway of Christian maturity.